If you see anything over there, go ahead and refresh. All right, you guys are live now.
Welcome back to the Gruber Companies. We had a little technical difficulty there, so we seem to have been off the air briefly, but looks like we're getting started now, and we'll do a reset here.
Yeah, I think let's do a reset. I'll dispense with the sayings. Just love to hear you again talk about how did you get involved or come up with the idea of a company that could create data cabling.
Sure. So this is the inaugural version, by the way, of a new podcast.
Yes.
The Gruber Companies Communications Group podcast, which we're calling the Wired Hour.
Mm-hmm.
And since this is the first one, we thought this might be a great time to discuss how we got here and why this company was created. So I worked for Digital for 10 years. Digital Equipment Corporation, by the way, was the world's #2 computer manufacturer at one point in time, right behind IBM. And I started there as a bench technician, worked my way into the engineering department, became a field engineer repairing mainframes, and eventually became a site planning specialist, which was a new position for Digital, in that they used to let customers buy their gigantic mainframes and then let them fend for themselves regarding power, access floor, how much AC they needed. And eventually they figured out, maybe we should be proactive and make this a pre-sales function and also support service with site planning and with remedial maintenance or repairs for things that weren't able to be repaired with the standard parts that they put into the mainframes. Oftentimes there were external things like static electricity, power quality problems, temperature deviations. And so anyway, that's the position that I was in for about 3 years prior to leaving the company. And what I typically found is that once I would do my thing, which is do a full layout, kind of like an architect,
Mm-hmm.
here's where you're going to place your equipment. This is the optimum airflow. Here's how much AC you're going to need. And it was really funny watching some of these customers say, well, we have AC in the building. Yeah, but you don't understand. You've got 300,000 BTUs of heat load here, which is quite a bit different than the people you're trying to cool. And what are you going to do in the wintertime? When you still have this massive heat load and your AC systems have shut down.
Right. Yeah. They tended to not think of the fact that they've just put a furnace into the corner.
Exactly. A furnace is a great way to describe it. So the type of job I had was ideal, and I had a company car, a decent salary, all the overtime I wanted. I was my own boss since I was the only one supporting sales and service here in the state of Arizona, and providing data center support and tech support for field service. So it was a tough job to leave, but unlike the other guys I worked with, I had always had a side business. I always wanted to be a businessman, and I was repairing audio equipment out of my house.
Okay.
And even had a Yellow Pages ad back in the day. That was before the age of the
Wow.
internet. Yeah, it cost me $360 a year, which was, a lot of money for me back then. But the slogan I had was, "We repair the ones the others can't." And in retrospect, that was an error because I actually ended up getting all the stuff that the other guys couldn't fix.
Right.
I would like to have had some of the easy stuff, right? So, but anyway, I'd always wanted to be in business. And so finally, I bit the bullet and I decided to leave that cushy job. And everybody thought I was crazy. But my goal was to become what they call computer rooms back then. Data center came a bit later,
Mhm.
but to design and build computer rooms. But, working out of my house, there were no outstanding loans. There were no partners. It was just me and whatever I had saved for a year, which was about a year's worth of salary.
Okay.
And so I couldn't initially get a contractor's license and do the access floor and all of the plumbing that goes into AC and all that. So I started doing data cabling, and that's really the division that we're going to be focusing on today. And I got jobs because I had connections in the industry. A lot of these people that I worked and helped them get their data centers running remembered me.
Sure.
Now, by the way, back then, I would do all this wonderful work to do design, layout, tell them how much AC they needed, how much clean power they needed. Halon was big back then, access floor. And invariably, the customers would say, where do we go to get all this? And there were a few contractors here in the state, but they were really deficient. And that was the genesis or the seed of the business opportunity. I felt that I could do a better job than the contractors I was turning those customers over to.
Okay.
So I initially started by offering data cabling services. And of course, I would buy product like what we now currently make from various distributors, Annixter, Graybar, Wesco, those kinds of, they're still around, by the way. And what I quickly figured out was that as I was out doing data cabling for the jobs that I had lined up, no one was back at the office, my house, my desk, finding business. So there were these dips and valleys. And I quickly figured out that you have to even those out by fulfilling two functions, sales and the service delivery,
Right.
doing the cabling. All right. So finally got some staff, and we called it Gruber Associates. And the reason for that was one guy working out of a house doesn't sound very big, Pete's cabling business.
Right.
But Gruber Associates has a plural attached to it, and it sounds like
That's
some
right.
people were
That's right.
involved, right? Anyway, that's what really started the cabling business. And from there, we branched out into doing electrical work, eventually picked up a line of power conditioning. That was in 1983, 84, when power conditioning was the primary way that people cleaned up their electricity. They didn't have UPSs to the extent that they do now because they were so darn expensive. They were, hundreds of thousands of dollars versus a power conditioner, which is basically a transformer-based tap switcher that would clean up your power for you, but it wouldn't give you ride through. So when the power dropped out, you went down. All right. So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, so you went into a lot of these different areas, but it sounds like for a lot of the early part of your business, you were just trying to source your cabling. At some point, you went from sourcing cabling to manufacturing cabling. Why don't you tell us about what happened and how that transition ended up occurring?
Well, by the time we got to 17 people working out of my house, 1984 timeframe, the city of Phoenix showed up one day and they said, "You're not zoned for this. You've got a 60-day cease and desist." And so we quickly scrambled trying to find a suitable facility where we could house, at that time, 17 people in it. At that time, we had data cablers, we had some electricians, and we used to buy all of the product.
Right.
There's a story that goes with that as well, by the way. The 60 days was not enough because we found a facility just south of us here.
It's
10,000 square foot building.
It's literally like 30 feet south of our south
Right.
building.
We signed up for 2 suites in that building. It was a brand new building, so the tenant improvement wasn't done, and that was going to take 90 days. So we had 30 days that we were in violation with the city of Phoenix, and we found that the inspector was very diligent. He used to come every 2 days to make sure there were no cars in the driveway and that we weren't continuing to work out of the house.
Oh, goodness. So how did you get around that for 30
Well,
days?
We got pretty crafty and pretty innovative. What I did was I immediately went to my neighbors and I said, "Look, I got a problem. I can't have all these cars in the driveway anymore, or even in the street for that matter. Would you mind if during the day we parked in your driveways and it would provide some security for you to make it look like someone was home?" And a lot of neighbors bought off on that, so we used to park the employees' cars in our neighbors' driveways.
Oh, that's funny.
The second thing that we had to do was we had the old style phone systems with the ringers, rather than the beep chime and all that. We used to have to silence the phone and draw the blinds in the house, knowing when the inspector was coming by. And it was usually within about a 2-hour time frame. So for 30 days or so, we used to basically hide when he came, and we were able to continue to do business. So that was basically how we grew or left the house and then got the commercial facility.
Okay. And now, what that helps you to understand how we got the commercial facility. But at some point, you went from buying to manufacturing your cable.
Yeah, that was another pivotal shift. It was easy to buy things.
Sure.
You didn't have to worry about having tooling and making things. And what we're talking about is primarily cable assemblies, patch panels, things like telco cables. Back then were big, 25 pair, for example.
Sure.
To
Okay.
put those together, you needed what's called a butterfly tool. And so anyway, we had a relationship with a company called Nevada Western out of California, which put us in a position where we got a better price than buying through distribution. We essentially became a distributor for Nevada Western,
Okay.
just like Annixter and Graybar and some of these other large companies. Well, we ended up. Oh, and there was a huge upfront investment we had to make in order to be a stocking distributor. You had to buy a bunch of their product and put it in inventory.
Okay.
So we did our best to try to buy the things that we knew we would use, but there was a lot of dead stuff in that pile too. But again, it gave us some discounts. Well, one of our sales reps got in a snit with them over having ordered some product. They felt we ordered it. We said we didn't. They couldn't prove that we had a purchase order for it. Anyway, it got to the point where it became acrimonious and they shut us off and we were on credit hold and we couldn't buy anything.
Wow.
Now we had projects ongoing
All right.
that
Yeah. At
required
this
product.
point, you need product and you don't have it.
So again, we quickly scrambled. We started to make our own cables. We even started to make patch panels. And that's really the seed and genesis of this division that we're going to be talking about in this podcast, the Wired Hour podcast, is the creation of a manufacturing capability that allowed us then to build the very same products that we were installing in the data centers, providing data cabling services.
And if I remember right, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but at the same time, didn't you find that once you started making product instead of buying product, you found that you could make it for far less than what you could buy it for?
Far less. And of course, being salespeople, we realize, you know what? Why just make this product for ourselves? What about all the other installers around the U.S. that might be interested in buying our product? So we actually changed from being a customer of Nevada Western to being a competitor of Nevada Western.
Sure, that makes total sense. And I mean, we talk about Graybar, Annixter, Wesco, and I mean, those are some of our bigger customers now. So
They are indeed, yes.
yeah,
So from there, yes, we began to make product. Now a new problem arose, which was finding labor to build the product. We had teams of people that were out in the field now. We were doing electrical installations.
mm-hmm.
We were doing data cabling, and we were a contractor. But we had to now switch gears a bit and become a manufacturer. And that required in-house staff to build product.
Sure.
In fact, Chaz Leitner was one of our first
Production managers, right?
Well, he was on the bench for a while
Okay.
and then became a production manager, right? What we found is that we needed people that had a certain skill. We couldn't just hire off the street, but they had to learn or had to know how to solder. They had to know how to use a VOM, a volt ohm meter. They had to use crimp tools and wire strippers, and it was a cut below an electrician, but a cut above your general assembler.
And didn't you start by going to like some of the local tech colleges? DeVry University would be one of them, and
High Tech Institute.
yeah, High Tech Institute, Universal Technical Institute, and
And we were looking for students there that were trying to break into the field. The previous jobs were generally fast food, delivery service,
Yeah, okay.
and they were trying to get a career in the high-tech field. So we thought this might be a good, employee pool to draw from. The problem with that was it was all short-term. They weren't going to go to school forever and work our job, whether it was part-time or full-time. And the schools typically would fill their heads with visions of grandeur. Oh, you're going to be a $60,000 per year IT manager when you graduate. Now, this was back
Right.
30 years ago. It was a lot of money back then.
right.
And they weren't interested in hanging around and continuing to do assembly work for us. So we had a high turnover, high attrition rate. And the work ethic, that was a whole nother issue. That wasn't very good either. I won't go into great details, but
Yeah, it would. Well, for the audience, think no further than kids who are just coming out of mom and dad's home,
mhm.
going to school, probably mom and dad paying for part of the school, because
Usually,
all
yeah.
these universities we're talking about were
Mhm,
private and were a little more expensive than your public schools.
mhm.
It's nothing like what today is, but still. And they're just kind of figuring life out. And so a lot of them probably having problems coming in, especially on Mondays, after having fun over the weekend.
Well, you
And
nailed it, and you weren't even there.
I
Yeah.
wasn't even there. No, but I was at DeVry in the 80s and early from the late 80s, and I saw an awful lot of that with my classmates.
And then factor in heavy indoctrination by the school's recruiters, filling their head with visions of grandeur about how much they're going to make when they graduated, none of which, by the way, materialized. And we found that many of the people that we had working a year later, after a dose of reality hit, were looking for jobs again with our company.
Yeah, not surprised there.
So, in the meantime, one of the guys that I worked with at Digital Equipment, Wang Fan, was a Vietnamese refugee. And he had built up his career. He was repairing mainframes along with what I used to do before I became a site planning specialist, and very knowledgeable. But he also had an altruistic side in that he was sponsoring refugees from Vietnam. Now, remember, the Vietnam War had been over relatively maybe a decade or so
Yeah,
at that
about
time.
10, 15 years. Okay.
Yeah. But there were still a lot of people trying to get out of Vietnam because of the, the Communist Party and the lack of freedoms, and they definitely saw this country as much greener grass, and rightfully so. So he was attempting to get me to hire Vietnamese refugees for many years, and I kept saying the same thing. Wang, they need to speak English. How are we going to train them?
Right.
We need to communicate. Well, he finally came up with a solution. He had a Frenchman who spoke Vietnamese and English and French, which we didn't need, by the way.
Yeah.
And he said, he also needs a job. Would you hire him along with some of the refugees? And I said, done deal. Well, I can tell you this, that within the first 6 months, there was a major transition in our production group. A completely different work ethic, a completely different attention to detail, no more absenteeism, like you mentioned, the Monday morning absences. What we found is that the Vietnamese refugees saw this as a career, and they were grateful and anxious to develop their skills, and they did. We have people here still from that group that have been here for, 30 years now. I think Wally was just up on stage, 29 years or something like that.
She was, and in fact, I want to, I know we're digressing a little bit, but the idea, Wally Wen, I believe is her full, pronounce her full name.
It's a common name in Vietnam, by the way.
Yes, it's a very common.
Everybody's a Wen.
It's the Vietnam version of Smith.
Exactly, yes.
That's what she has told me, and I cannot pronounce it correctly according to her, so I have tried and I will not try again.
Right.
But she came here as a refugee, and within about a year or so of coming here, she learned about Gruber Industries. The name had been changed by that point in time, and came to work building cable assemblies. By the time I first met her in 1998, she was helping to lead a group of people in the new fiber optic division.
Wally is a prime example of the trajectory that a lot of the people here have had. She started off in the warehouse, didn't speak any English, and she was basically packaging boxes. Today, she's our production manager. She's highly respected by her staff. She does all the hiring, the recruiting, and all of the management. She's an operations manager. She's a people manager, HR manager, because of the language issues often.
Oh yes.
And but yeah, many of the people that we hired back then continued to grow with the company. Oftentimes, they worked here their entire careers and then retired. None of these kids from DeVry would have ever retired here.
No.
I can't imagine that. So, but I have to point out that this is a large measure of our success in the comm group, in that we have a very stable labor pool, highly committed. with years of training and experience, and great attention to detail, high quality work with top notch management involved.
Oh, by all means, the manufacturing department here at Gruber, they are kind of our unsung all stars,
Mhm.
and they're well known and well loved by everybody in the company and by many of our customers as well because they just get things done,
Mhm.
and they really form the backbone of the Gruber Industries business.
So I've got a picture that I'd like to throw up here. It's called DB25 to RJ45 adapter. And there's a lot of innovation at our company. And one of the biggest innovations, although it looks like a small, tiny connector, is this little DB25 connector that converts to RJ45, which is an 8-conductor jack, telco jack, basically. While I was still a digital and advising customers how to build their data centers and their computer rooms, a product made by Black Bear in California, and it was darn expensive at the time too, $7 for one of
Hmm.
these adapters. I think they cost us less than $1 nowadays. Should I have said that? Sorry.
Well,
Yeah. Okay.
that's
Sorry,
okay.
salespeople. Yeah.
Giving away the secrets.
Keep your margins. But anyway, that little adapter that was made by Black Bear revolutionized the data cabling industry. If you throw up another picture here called DB25 pinouts, we used to have dumb terminals on mainframes, which means they weren't PCs, they weren't servers, they were just simply CRT screens with a keyboard and the ability to communicate through RS-232 with the mainframe. And for the longest time, people assumed that because those dumb terminals and printers had a DB25 connector, which is a 25-wire connector, you needed all 25 wires in order to communicate with the mainframe.
Yep.
When in fact nothing was further from the truth. RS-232 is pins 2 for transmit, 3 for receive, 7 for ground, and 20 for data terminal ready. So you're using 4 wires, but yet obligating a customer to install 25 wires. And I remember many data centers I would go into, I would just shake my head and say, this is not necessary. Here we've got these thick cables, half-inch thick sometimes, shielded, 25 conductor for a very slow signal transfer method called RS-232. We're talking about baud rates back then. 9600 was fast. Then 19.2 came out, and that was even faster, right?
Oh, yeah. It's working. My first job after going to DeVry, I was a DeVry graduate in the late 80s, was working with a Xenix system. That's a flavor of Unix.
Yeah,
And
I remember that.
we had the Weiss terminals. And in the first office, which was in downtown Scottsdale, we had exactly what you're talking about. The Weiss terminal had this, what looked like a printer cable, and it was about 1/4 of an inch thick, and it came out of the terminal and ran across the counter and into the server. And we had 4 of them for our data entry people to do the data entry with. Moved to a new office a year and a half later in North Scottsdale. And by that point, we had realized that this technology was available. And so as we migrated our system from a Xenix system to a DEC VAX, so that's the mini computer that Digital has, we did the same thing. It was get these $7 connectors. And I think for us, because we were buying them retail, they were $15 or something like that. But that $15 connector, so much was offset because instead of paying $2.50 to $3 a foot for the 25 pin cable, we were spending $5 or $6 for a 25-foot satin flat
Silver
cable.
satin cable.
Silver satin cable that had I think it was 8 wires and an RJ45
yes.
connector in the end.
Yeah. And one of the reasons that we were so successful doing data cabling is we never lost jobs. The people we were competing with were using this 25 conductor technology and trying to run that point A to point B from terminals to the mainframes.
Wow.
We came in with these modular adapters, even though they were $7, $8 a piece. And then we can bring up another picture, Jesse. It's called silver satin cable. And we were using telco cables, telephone cables, which people in the data world back then thought was sacrilegious. It can't work. It's not possible. But that little cable was $1.29, and that DB25 cable, let's pop that picture up, was more like $6 to $8 per cable.
Sure.
So you can quickly begin to see, and depending on length, of course. I mean, that was for the 6-footer. That was for the
yeah.
standard length.
Oh,
You
yeah.
go across the room and you've multiplied that exponentially. So again, you don't need all 25 pins. And what that also allowed us to do was to create product that would use these telco cables with the RJ45 plug, such as patch panels. And now your patching became infinitely easier than trying to use DB25 patching with massive cables and limited amount of real estate because the connectors were so much larger. So that was, and our early patch panels, by the way, I've got another picture here, Jesse. Today they're steel, powder coated, up to 128 port panels. If you bring up the 12 port wall plate, this was, again, something we brought in from the telco world. Here in Arizona, by the way, we became the champions of this technology. And there were other companies like us around the country that began to pioneer this. But instead of patch panels, we used to put in 12-port wall plates with keystone jacks, which again came from the telephone world. There were no data jacks back then.
Right.
They were 8-position. They would take a silver satin cable, and you didn't even need a 6-position silver satin cable because you only needed 4 conductors. So a 6-position RJ12 was also suitable. But we gave them those extra, 2 pins because it was inexpensive. So that was really the genesis of the whole comm product set that we developed. And everything became RJ45 based at that point, and getting rid of the DB25 type connections.
Now, I know that Gruber grew quite a bit in the 90s. I even remember seeing an award sitting up in one of our conference rooms in 1995.
Well, before you go there, I've got one more thing to insert
Yes,
here.
please.
This was working out of the house again. And cash flow, of course, could be tight, but, it was like Elon. You work 100 hours a week, that problem's solved.
Right.
If you're trying to raise a family and, be a good husband and a good father and all that, don't start a business. You can't be any good at both.
Yeah.
It's tough. Let me put it that way.
It's tough.
Unless you got a whole lot of investment capital and you can hire people right away and you can go out and play golf and all the other people do the work, that wasn't the reality for me. It was all trying to grow on cash flow. So one of the ways that I generated cash flow while still working out of the house and now having some teams of people out in the field, back in the day, they used to have AB switch boxes and even ABC switch boxes. And the reason for that was printers were expensive and dumb terminals, needed to communicate with the printer. So what they would do is you would have a switch box, and that one printer in that facility would be shared amongst a number of users.
Correct.
And that was an AB or ABC switch box. Well, Digital sold these AB switch boxes with DB25 connectors on the back, go figure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were great looking. They were aluminum housing. They had some substantial weight to them. They sold them for $250. What I found is that I could buy a plastic bud box for about $12, put RJ jacks on the back of it instead of DB25 connectors, get a rotary switch that does AB switching, and it didn't have to be high current. This was all low current, low voltage type connections, up to 15 volts maybe. And the only problem was when we got done, our plastic version didn't feel as substantial as that metal version.
Right.
So we ended up going to the fish and tackle store, and we bought lead pucks that you would use for fishing, and melt those down to make your lead weights. And we would super glue, or at that time, hot glue, one of those inside the box, which now made it feel just as heavy as the metal box.
They gave it some
It was
heft.
indistinguishable. Now we were able to charge not $250, but $179 per box, with a margin of about $150.
There you go.
And that was partly what created the cash flow necessary to keep the early Gruber associates running. And of course, they were very popular. People liked saving, $50 or more, or $70 per AB switch box, and there were plenty of customers for that.
more than once I remember having boxes that were hooked into boxes that were and in some cases boxes hooked into boxes hooked into boxes.
You cascade them. That's right.
You would cascade your switch boxes in order to get 3 printers shared amongst 4 people or something like that.
Right.
Because it was very expensive. And it was those type of innovations that led to Gruber being one of the fastest growing businesses in the mid-90s.
Mm-hmm.
But there was another innovation that I love hearing the story about that even today, every once in a while, I will see in manufacturing. It's somebody that'll be sitting there twisting cable. Usually it's with something like a power drill. And tell us about that innovation.
Well, there came a point in time when RS-232 just wasn't fast enough. Right. And, the pressure on faster, better, quicker is constant in the electronics world. We see that in virtually everything, including cars, where the 0 to 60 times need to get faster. Well, anyway, after RS-232 speed was pretty much exhausted, there came what was called a high-speed data communication, and they initially called it Category 4. And you know what? It just came to me. Category was a replacement term. Level, I think, was the original term. And Annixter decided to copyright that and then sue people for using it. So they switched over to category. Shame on you, Annixter. That was poor form, and you lost out because everything became category after that.
That's
now,
right.
I can say that because I was like 35 years ago, all right? But so the Category 4 was on the drawing board. It was not yet approved by EIA-TIA, but the problem with higher speeds when you have wires that are adjacent to each other is crosstalk. By that, I mean when you have a signal traveling through one wire, there's a magnetic field that goes around that. And if it's sufficient enough or high speed enough, it can cross over into your wire right next to it. And now you have what's called crosstalk, near-end crosstalk.
Sure.
To break that up, you twist the pairs. You put them in a drill and you just twist them together, and now all of your crosstalk is diminished because you no longer have them running side by side, cumulatively crossing over into the other wire. So we knew that other companies were working on it, Ortronics, for example, and they had better engineering talent than we did. I freely admit that. But we wanted to get a jump on the industry. So we developed some twisted pair Category 4 jacks by simply taking telco jacks and twisting the wires together on 4 pairs. Killed the near-end crosstalk sufficiently to where we were able to put those into patch panels, and then being marketing panels or being marketing people, we had a PP line of patch panels, which is patch panel. PP64 was a 64-port patch panel. Well, then we developed an HP series of panel for high-speed patching, right? And so that was the first foray into higher speed data communications and a higher speed patch panel. And we were actually able to scoop the industry without a lot of engineering talent and a lot of R&D by simply twisting the pairs.
And I've always wondered, because Gruber advertised Category 4 before the industry was ready for Category 4, did the industry just jump to Category 5 as a result?
I don't know that for sure.
I don't know that for sure, but that's one we probably won't know.
But it did jump fairly quickly. That's true.
Yeah. Now, we have a guest that's here for our first podcast as well.
We do indeed. Let's introduce Audrey Taggart. Audrey is one of our account managers in the comm group, and we asked her to join us to reminisce and talk about the challenges that the account managers face. And there are a lot of them in the call center. Welcome, Audrey.
Welcome.
We have a headset for you here. We'll turn your microphone on. And Jesse gets really perturbed if you don't talk right into the microphone. In fact, he'll start waving his arm. There you go. You're doing good.
Okay, here we go.
So one of the reasons that we thought we would have Audrey here is to talk about her experiences as an account manager. Now, you've been in this industry for a while, In fact, you actually left our company for a while and went to work for a distributor
I
and then
did.
came back to a manufacturer.
I did.
So maybe you can start by telling us about yourself and then segue into some of those topics.
Sure. Well, I was fortunate enough to start a job here in 2014, I believe, the beginning of 2014. Just calling, trying to find new customers, didn't know anything about the business, and quickly learned quite a bit, being with manufacturing and stuff. I'm a little nervous, sorry.
Well, that's okay.
Well, you're doing good.
No, but
No, you have sunglasses. It kind of cuts the nervousness, too.
Hey, Mark?
They can't see.
Yes.
You check the cable. We're getting feedback.
All right.
Looks like it's up against the block that's there.
There we go.
So yeah, and I learned quite a bit about fiber optics, selling them. Fiber optics I'm really interested in. It was something that every day you learn something new. There's something different to do with it. And I got really good at it. And one of my customers offered me a job that I couldn't refuse. It was really close here to home. And so I took the opportunity, went over there, and great people, family owned, small distributor here in Phoenix. I can't say a bad word about them or the job that I had there. It was great. I was absolutely bored out of my mind. Working here, being able to be in that part of manufacturing and engineering and working with your customers every day, and it's always something different. So that for me meant so much. So the 6-month mark that I gave them, hey, I'll give you 6 months, and then I'm going to go back if it's not what I want. And it wasn't what I wanted. I really, really enjoy my job here. I really enjoy working with, again, all the manufacturing people, our engineering people, the sales people. It's just been great.
And the thing that we can do, unlike most distributors, is we can do a lot of custom work as well, because you're familiar with the staff here, what skills they have, the machine shop, the fiber room, the category room. So essentially, anything a customer can dream up that they would like to have built, we can do that, and you can be a project manager basically to facilitate that.
Absolutely. That's one thing that I always tell all of my customers, when they don't know a whole lot about Gruber, is if you're looking for something that you can't find anywhere else, we have that unique ability to really figure out what it is that they want, whether it's something custom with metal, or some sort of a bracket that they're looking for to mount their server, or, if they're looking for a bundle of Cat 6 cables because they don't want to run 15 separate ones,
Right.
Or fiber optics. It's just endless, the options you have with fiber. We could sit here and talk for hours, but
The one that comes to mind for me is, so we tell customers, let your imagination run wild. We'll take it from concept to actual execution fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Do you remember Harkins Theaters?
I do.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, I think that was another one of the account managers, but they were working on redoing some of their server rooms and had to have a specific shelf built for all of the theaters, and we were able
For the
to.
cameras, they had a new version of cameras, right?
Okay, I wasn't part of that project. So, but yes, they did. They had a new version of cameras, and they were looking to get a shelf built, and I think it came in on a piece of paper, and between the account manager and Chaz, they were able to draw it up and get a couple of prototypes built and got approved. And the next thing you know, we're shipping them to every location of Harkins around the United States.
We did pretty good with that project.
We did.
And we still have some, by the way. And the reason I'm familiar with it is because Harkins, unfortunately, did not survive COVID. And what ended up happening is we have some excess shelves in stock, but we're repurposing them. I'm using one right now at the Gruber
Nice.
Motor Company battery bunker, and it's holding a 50-volt power supply up on the wall.
Yeah,
Very
we
cool.
I remember we call those our Mercury shelves. I think AMC Theaters also bought a bunch of those and did a lot of remodeling. And so, the project ended up getting cut short, but at least thankfully the theaters do still exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, it's very nice.
Now, I have a question for you as well, and this one's going to be kind of an off the cuff. So we'll have the conversation ourselves.
Sure.
Who's your most interesting customer, and why is that?
Wow, that's a good question. My most interesting customer, it would have to be my fiber optic customers. Ericsson, they are a huge customer of mine, and it's the custom fiber gets me every time. I just love it. It gets me interested in. I'm not sure if you're asking about specific company or person.
No,
but
you're doing great. Yeah. So Ericsson is one of your bigger customers, and you've helped develop that account and open it up over time.
I really have. It's been great for me. I got in with one of the guys there, and we just really hit it off. I was able to answer his emails quickly, get him his quotes, quickly, and that was one thing that he didn't have to worry about. So what I do for my customers is a very small part of their job. You know, so if I'm able to do that part for them without having to go back and forth with questions and stuff like that, I've learned that it really helps me. And Ericsson, they do installs all over the place. And at each time, it's a different type of cable. It's a different length. It's got different connectors, different breakouts, you know, and it's always something new. So there's always engineering going into even just a simple order. You know, there's some type of engineering going into it. And
That's one of the cool things about what we do is that, you know, like you said, Pete, we tell people to let their imagination run wild. We do what other people can't do, going all the way back to when you were repairing the radios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope the competition wasn't listening when Audrey said, and I get back to them quickly. The number one thing in sales, right?
Yeah, I think that comes, you know, for individuals.
We have some comments up here. Let's entertain
look.
those from YouTube.
Yes.
Frankie Leon, he says, good job, Audrey.
Oh, hi, Frankie. That's my buddy out there in the warehouse.
And then we've got YouTube, 7 Day Pass, saying, yay, Audrey, whoop, whoop. All right,
whoop, whoop.
applause. And then YouTube Evie fan, let's go, another Gruber cast. Welcome, Audrey, and a lot of applause emojis after
Oh, thanks,
that
guys.
one.
That's awfully sweet of all of you.
Yes.
I'm pretty nervous up here. I don't do videos even for my own social media.
Oh, don't worry
So
about
this
it.
was
Yeah.
new for me, but I'm glad I joined you guys.
Well, you're doing well. You're doing well.
Thank
And
you.
one of the things we should probably do is talk about what times this will be broadcast. Today is an anomaly.
Yeah.
It's Wednesday. The reason being is we thought our streaming service was live for a Monday morning podcast, which is where this would normally air, and it would be 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time until daylight saving shifts.
Yes.
So next week it will be on again Monday. But
That's
today
right.
we wanted the inaugural. We didn't want to miss the inaugural, so we thought let's just do it in the afternoon. And anyway,
Well, good.
yeah.
Well, and you know what? I'm gonna turn around here real quick because we're all wearing the same shirt today. I want to call this one out. This is part of the
Yeah.
attitude that we've had at Gruber for years, and it's so important. So I'm going to take my headphones off and turn around.
Close your laptop just a little bit, Pete, so we can see your logo
All right.
on your shirt because it's being blocked by your. There you go.
All right.
So
The sales team.
Yes.
There we go.
Very
Get your
nice.
hair out of the way. She's got it too. Sales team.
you know, the fact is, it doesn't matter who we are. Pete is the CEO and president of the company. I am the CFO and vice president of the company.
Yep.
You are a sales account manager, but we are all in sales.
Yes, we are.
And for all of us, it really is about taking care of the customers.
And one of the few things that I'm most proud of here, including all the people, by the way, and everything we do, is a sign on my office door, which normally would say, you know, chief, boss, CEO. Mine says executive assistant to the customer.
Yes.
And that really epitomizes our culture here.
It does. It does. We will all work hard and get together. If I have a customer that's like, Audrey, look, I messed up and I need this fiber, you know, tomorrow. Is there anything you can do? You know, if everything's working right, I can go to our team, Wally, and our team and be like, hey, I have this customer, you know, and they make it happen, you know, and it's really great. And I think a lot of our customers know that about us. And, you know, it makes all of us, we work so well together, part of a family, including our customers, I think. It's part of what makes my job so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I remember walking across the compound over to my office and seeing our warehouse people. Frankie was one of them. In fact, they were furiously loading boxes. Tell us about that one, because that was one of your customers.
Yes, so that was, I think I ended up having to drive that down to the FedEx because we had, it was over 1,500 cables for a data center upgrade that we were doing, changing it from 62.5 fiber to 50 micron OM4. They were upgrading it, and it was quite a few cables, and they had a deadline to get them out, and we were running real tight, and I had told the customers a chance we might not be able to get 100 of them out. But Wally and her team, they got them done, but too bad it was about 20 minutes after FedEx had already came and picked up orders.
Okay.
So we had Frankie and the team loading up the boxes, and I just drove it right down to FedEx and got it all on there. We got it out, and the customer had it in time, and they got all the install done, and it was just amazing.
You know, I see that all the time. Our top producers here are the people that integrate work into their personal life at times. You know, Darren, for example, he's driving things out to his customers constantly.
Oh, yes.
It does a couple of things. It not only builds a level of trust and indebtedness, but it keeps him visible and they become friends. People do business with people. You know, we live in an age of AI and internet and emails and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's still people doing business with people. We know that.
Yeah, and if your customers know they can rely on you, and even if, you can't, and you have to say, look, I'm not going to be able to do it this time. I mean, they really appreciate that. And I think that you get a different level of respect and a better customer because of it, because they know they can trust you whether you can come through or not. Mm-hmm. And most of the time we can, so we don't have to worry about that part too much.
We've got a great team out there.
I agree. I have to agree with that.
All the way down through the fulfillment and the sales process as well.
So one of the reasons we're doing this is we know that we've got a lot of magic here. We have a lot of special people. We've got teams. We have a lot of talent. But we want to make sure that people out there know about it, and that's the reason we're bringing this division into the social media realm. And as Mark pointed out, we've always been marketing geniuses. We've always availed ourselves of the guerrilla marketing approaches. Back when people were still going to trade shows and flying people all over the country, we were quietly faxing flyers. I can tell that story real quick because it's a humorous one. All right. So one day, fax machines used to be very expensive. And we couldn't afford to buy one because they were like $1,400 to $1,600. So we leased one, and that was infinitely less expensive. And we all used to gather around this fax machine when it rang, in the small sales team, waiting for the thermal paper to spit out something. And oftentimes it was a gift. It was a purchase order.
Sure.
We get excited in sales with purchase orders, right? So here, one day, the thing rings. We're clustered around it, waiting for what's coming out. It turns out it was an ad for thermal paper. And
Genius.
I ripped it off and I walked in Steve's office, the CFO at the time, and I said, Steve, how arrogant of these people to use our thermal paper, even though it cost half a penny or something, but it was irritating to me. Well, a month later, I walked into Steve's office and I saw a box on the side desk there, and it had the same company name as this company that faxed us that paper or that flyer. And I said, Steve, why would we support a company that used our fax machine and used our thermal paper, and intruded on us? He says, simply, Pete, they've got the cheapest thermal paper.
There you go.
That was a paradigm shift.
Right? That's awesome.
So within a couple of days, being a marketing guy, I took a piece of paper, 8.5 by 11, put some flyer stuff on it, our specials, and manually faxed that through that machine to some of our customers. And within, I don't know how many I faxed out before I got a response, I realized this works.
Yeah.
So the next thing was a company came out, and it was one of those companies where you're flying and they had a magazine, Sharper Image. It wasn't that name, though. DAC. That was Andrew Kaplan.
Okay.
He used to sell fancy electronic stuff, liquidation stuff.
Yeah.
We got one of those, and he was advertising a fax card that goes in your PC. So you no longer have to have the machine with a thermal paper. It actually receives, or it's received, goes into memory, pops up on your screen. So I bought one of those, experimented with it, and now I could send hundreds within 15 minutes versus
watch out.
manual.
Now, Pete, I've got a question for you. So when you started that fax campaign, did you send a fax to the thermal paper company right on back?
I didn't, but that would have been something appropriate, would it not?
Man.
Or at least tell them, hey guys, here's a better way to do it,
Right.
I do remember when I first I first came in to start working with Gruber in 1998 when I was starting my own small business, went to a yard sale, lived near the Deer Valley area, and saw a sign that said office furniture for sale on a Saturday. And I thought, hey, I need office furniture.
Right.
So I make the turn on 2nd Avenue, and I look at the name on the building. I'm like, I know that company. See, 3 years prior, about the company, the small consulting company that I worked for at the time, had received a lead for a new accounting system from a Gruber Industries. Now, they didn't get the business; their competitor did. Mm-hmm. I went in and I see this middle-aged gentleman working at a computer,
Stephen,
and I looked and I was like, "Is that Foxborough?" It's like, yeah, how do you know that? well, I work in Foxborough. You do?
And you must have said, I've been looking for you, right?
He almost did because I knew the company, and the reputation that that company had
Right.
was that they sold and didn't service well.
Uh-huh.
And I knew that I was building my business based on service. And so we started a great relationship.
Sure.
But then I flash forward a couple months. I'm getting the grand tour of the place, and I see this server room, which is where our receptionist is now. And in that server room is this computer that has like four port fax cards in it. And they said, oh yeah, we use this with our WinFax software, and this is how we do our marketing.
Right. And then I realized that we had at that time 30 workstations out on the floor, and all of you guys would go home at 5 o'clock, right? And I thought,
Right.
hey, these things are idle all night and on weekends. So I got fax cards for every workstation, and at night, your workstations were working. They were faxing.
Yes, there you go.
That's awesome.
But the best thing that came along was when email came along in 1995. We were so inspired with that whole internet concept, we started Extreme Internet.
Yes.
And my goal was now to do free email broadcasts because faxes still cost you. They were long distance calls.
Yes.
Right.
So there was a cost associated.
Sure.
But email was free. You
Right.
got your pipe, you got your dedicated circuit, and you can use it as much as you want up to your bandwidth
Funny,
limit.
we still get some purchase orders from certain companies via our fax number.
Really?
But now our fax number is automatically uploaded and sent via email. So it comes through as an email now, but they're still faxing it to our fax number. I don't know if they're doing it online with their computer. No, probably not the fax machine,
Right.
but it's still considered a fax, right?
Yeah, it is still considered a
yeah.
fax. And yes, we some years back we digitized our faxes so that when it comes in, when the fax comes in, it comes in straight to a computer and gets converted to a digital document immediately.
Sure.
Do you remember when we bought our 21 West Lone Cactus building from Clampnail? Fourth generation
I do.
a business since 1917. We walked in their office area. They had an IBM Selectric and a manual fax machine in that office.
I do remember that, and it was like early '80s decor. It was it was something else, I tell you.
But
Yeah.
nothing wrong with it. And, what got us started on this train of thought was that we've always been marketing geniuses in that we avail ourselves of the non-traditional methods. And social media is the next foray. This is exactly why we're doing this.
It is. Social media is a great big thing for individuals, but it's not a very big thing for companies. Yeah, I see
think you
YouTube.
have a relative up there.
Rhonda Luttrell.
Rhonda
Great job.
Luttrell, that's my mom. Hi,
Yes.
Mom. She's being supportive.
And thank you for watching some of our videos. I heard that that you watch us on TikTok once in a while.
She does. She
appreciate
enjoys checking out what Gruber companies are doing, that's for sure.
So what we're doing over in the communications group right now is we've got a revival basically taking place. A lot of new salespeople, and our goal is going to be to provide training. Certainly things like this. We're going to invite other people from that team into these podcasts, and as you can tell, we do have fun with these.
Two things I want to mention. First, I remember this goes back a long time. I was talking to Steve Korf, and he was the former CFO of the company before I was here. And he told me his favorite story, and it's so memorable that I wanted to tell it too. This was a story about an account manager who was talking on the phone and managed to get a sale with the city of Tacoma, Washington.
Oh yes,
This sale occurred around the 2000 to 2002 timeframe. And what it is that the city of Tacoma was in the process of upgrading their infrastructure citywide from, I believe, copper to fiber optic. And the sale itself was about $1.2 million.
yes.
Nice.
Now, I don't remember exactly the size of the commission check, but I do remember Steve saying it was more than half the cost of a normal house at the time.
Right.
And so he said the happiest call he had in his career at Gruber was a call with the bank the afternoon of payday, because the bank thought that the salesperson had a fraudulent check.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so pleasing to him to tell the banker, no, this person has earned a commission. And we are so proud to be able to say that is not a fraudulent check.
Yeah.
And I think the check was $60,000 to $70,000. And that was at a time when homes were between 90 and 110,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
those projects are awesome. I got a couple of years ago. I did help out a little bit with upgrading all of the dugouts in the MLB, Major League
okay,
Baseball,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
and that was a really fun project to do. They did the Hoffman boxes with the patch cables and the fiber in them, and we built them and shipped them for each dugout over the United States. So that was
Very
a few
cool.
years ago.
very cool.
That's a fun one. And I also wanted to make sure to mention here on the podcast, there's an award that goes around the sales team. We have a top dog award, but that's kind of a not fair one because there's a group of 3 guys that get together, led by our senior account manager is Steve Robinson in that group, and they basically take the top honors every month, right?
Yes.
But we also have I think it's the Top Shark. Yeah, it's like a sales shark.
Sure.
And that is the award that goes to the other salesperson in the team that is best production basically for the month. And you got that award last month.
I did. A couple of us, it's back and forth over the last couple of months. I've had it a few times, they've had it a few times, and it's just a fun little statue that we get to pass around, based on who has the best month. But yes, this month it is mine, proudly.
Yeah, very much.
Yep.
For sure.
Place that prominently. The other
Yes.
thing that I enjoy walking through these call center teams is you guys have your "that was easy" buttons again. And whenever a lead is generated, you hear "that was easy" and people stand up and applaud,
Yeah. Yeah, they really do like it, especially when you get the new people. We have kind of a quieter office here. So when you have 3, 4, new people in sales and everybody else is quiet, you have to think of something, that keeps them going. So each time they get, their little lead or whatever, it's like everybody in the office hears the "that was easy" button and we're all like, oh yeah. Even if we don't know what it was for, we know somebody got,
It's infectious because these guys upstairs here are doing it too now.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't go wrong, making everybody smile and clapping a couple times a day. That's great.
So one of the things that we didn't cover was, and we're almost out of time here, probably let it run an hour, but lifetime warranty.
That's an important one, yes.
It's not on our website right now, and it was kind of an oversight, but I'll tell you where that came from. Back in the day, we started to manufacture cabling products. And when I first proposed lifetime warranty, everybody here said, oh, no, it's going to cost us a fortune. That's not, how are we going to handle that? I said, guys, how much of the stuff really comes back? For 2 reasons. One is we make excellent product. And secondly, are people really going to ship back a patch cable? So we went with lifetime warranty. And the reason I liked it is being a tool type guy. Back before Harbor Freight, which really destroyed the tool business in the United States, you used to be able to go to Sears, and buy your Craftsman tools. And even though it cost a little bit more than the other guys, you knew that if that ever broke, you could walk back to Sears and get a brand new tool to replace that broken tool. So that was another innovation here because nobody at the time had it. I remember Belkins came to me one day. They're corporate guys.
Yeah.
Called up and they said, this lifetime warranty, how much does that cost you? Is that I know what they were doing.
If they only knew.
Yeah.
I was, I was straightforward with them. I figured they're going to do it anyway, and they ended up with some lifetime warranty on their products. But I'll tell you, as soon as the lawyers get involved, forget that.
Right.
Because they want to put all the caveats and all the provisions in there and all of the liability issues, and all that.
That's right.
But that's the reason for lifetime warranty, and we continue with that. Now, it's lifetime warranty for anything we make.
Absolutely.
So when you resell a Cisco router, we can't give lifetime warranty on that, right?
Yeah, we do buy and sell, resell a lot of items that aren't Gruber, but our Gruber products that we're manufacturing here with our production team, they're absolutely lifetime warranty, and I stress that to all my customers.
Yeah.
Well, and our team does such a great job that you're right. Almost no returns. And it speaks volumes to our customers.
Absolutely.
Hey, we stand behind our product.
Yep.
If you ever have a problem, you think it's fun to work with us when everything is going right. Just watch how good we can be when something isn't quite right.
Yes.
Good point.
Yeah,
Good
that's
point.
been a big one for me too, for sure. We just take care of it and make sure the customer good no matter what.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we hope you guys have enjoyed our podcast. Please hit that like button, subscribe. It helps us grow. It helps us do more of these.
Yes.
And feel free to join us next Monday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we will continue these kinds of discussions. Yeah.
Thank you guys
Absolutely.
for giving me the opportunity to be online for the first time. I enjoyed myself.
Thank you, Audrey. We sure
did
loved having you
extremely
here.
Well, there you go.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. Thanks,
Thank you
Mark.
for joining us.
Take care.
All right. Thank you so much.